Thank you, team, and welcome to today's presentation, Who Moved My Cheese Workbook Journal. I hope to spend a little time with you today and talk to you a little bit more about the book and about change, especially during these COVID challenging times that we're living in. So, if you have the opportunity, there is a journal or workbook journal that accompanies this presentation, and you can find that in your resource area of the program here. So please feel free to download it, review it as we go through the presentation, or save it for later. So, I am Christopher Sanderson. I am a senior member with IEEE, as well as a senior member with ASQ and a couple of other different certifications. I am here because I want to help you change your life. I can always be reached at christopher.b.sanderson@IEEE.com. I am the R5 Houston Section Chair, as well as the R5 South Area Chair for IEEE Region 5. I'm also an Eta Kappa Nu member from the Zeta Lambda chapter. I'm also the 2021 to 2023 candidate for HKN Regional Board of Governors for Region 5 and 6. I am a 2017 Volt volunteer graduate, and I actually also sit on the IEEE USA Career and Professional Development Committee. But before IEEE, I was a U.S. Army commissioned officer, as well as a U.S. Army non-commissioned officer. I've worked for a lot of different companies. Some you may or may not have heard of. One of them is named Square D, or now named Group Schneider Electric. The other one is General Electric, and another was Siemens, and another one is ABB. Again, this was actually previously done with IEEE USA, and so you can find a copy of that particular presentation. But with this presentation I'm giving you today is an update to that. So let's get started here. Let's look at the world of Dilbert. I'm telling you, if nobody gets a raise, half of the engineers will quit. That's the goal. We're trying to reduce our head count by 50%. But all the smart people will leave. Would you mind organizing a goodbye potluck lunch for them? That's a Dilbert day. Let's look at one more Dilbert cartoon here. Our CEO's goal is to improve our revenue per employee, so I'm going to fire you and bring you back as a contractor. Last week's goal was to reduce the number of contractors so you can, cancel my contract and hire me as an employee. Well, it looks like someone doesn't like their cheese being moved. That's the world of Dilbert here. So let's dig a little bit more about the presentation. Well, first thing, I have to give credits and acknowledgments to the amazing, this amazing book, Who Moved My Cheese, by Spencer Johnson. It was actually published in September the 8th of 1998, and it sold over 30 million copies. And it's been translated into 37 different languages. It's also been a New York #1 best time seller. So, Who Moved My Cheese and Out of the Maze are all copyrighted and trademarked, and the rights of the author and their companies. They are only mentioned for educational purposes only. Please do not copy or reproduce this information. Here's some things to think about. Cheese. Cheese is a metaphor for whatever nourishes us, whether it's a good job, a loving relationship, or peace of mind. The maze represents where we spend time looking for what we want. The workbook is our metaphor for working through our experiences for some of the discussion pertaining to this change. The journal is our record of those changes we're working on. So that kind of sets us up here. Let me give you a nice quote here. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past and present are certain to miss the future. That's a quote by John F. Kennedy. I think it's so relevant for today's discussion. So before we get started, I want to take a few seconds here and like to better understand a few things here. So if you do have to, please take time out to let me know if you have read the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Please answer yes or no. We'll take a few seconds here and try to tabulate some results. All right, we're going to close out the poll here and let's see what type of results we get. Wow, very interesting. We have 36% of the respondents have read the book, but a great deal of us have not read the book. So again, I highly encourage you to read the book. Let's take one more poll question here. Have you ever read the book Out of the Maze? Please take a few seconds to answer yes or no. Have you ever read the book Out of the Maze? It's actually the follow-up to Who Moved My Cheese, so this is going to be pretty interesting in reference to the results. Take a few more seconds here, and we're going to get ready and close out the poll here. Wow. That's 100% of no's. Well, great. That gives us a good baseline to go off of here. So if you have not read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, which is the first iteration, please do so. Please reread it and share it. As well as if you have not had the chance to read the follow-up discussion of Out of the Maze, you have to read that too. So, the big concept here, the biggest thing I want us to do is keep an open mind. The purpose of us are willing to have an honest and self-reflection. You definitely have some pen and paper for which the beginning of your workbook journal will begin, and time. Time to really read the book or reread it and share it. I actually have multiple copies of the book that I share with family and friends who have not had the chance to read the book themselves. That's how important I believe the book is, or has been for me. So, since we've received those poll results, we are in for a treat. I've been able to capture a video to talk about, to summarize Who Moved My Cheese. Give us a couple of seconds.
Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson is one of the top-selling business books of the past decade. It's a charming and entertaining book that uses a fable to show how to handle change, which can be stressful in work and life. In the book's foreword, management expert Ken Blanchard says, "Cheese is a metaphor for what we want in life, be it a job, a relationship, money, or organizational success. We spend time seeking what we want in the maze. In the book, the maze is a literal one. Our task," he says, "is to learn to change or move with the cheese in a way that helps us get what we really want, especially in these times of rapid change." The book is in 3 sections. 1. A gathering. It's a class reunion about trying to deal with changes in their lives. 2. The actual story of Who Moved My Cheese, which is the fable the people at the reunion read. And 3. The discussion, or a talk about how they are going to use the story in their work and lives. Let's get into the book. We begin with The Gathering. The book begins with a lunch gathering of former classmates in Chicago the day after their high school reunion. All are trying to cope with unexpected changes, and most of them admit they aren't great at handling them. Michael shares how he used to fear change in his business until he heard a funny little story called Who Moved My Cheese? Once he passed the story around to people in his company, the business did much better, and it altered how Michael looked at change. Now, we move into the heart of the book. The story. Who Moved My Cheese? The story features two mice named Sniff and Scurry, and two little people who were as small as mice named Hem and Haw. Every day they put on jogging suits and running shoes and hit the maze in search of cheese. One day they all find cheese at Cheese Station C. Hem and Haw believed that having cheese makes you happy. Once they found cheese at Cheese Station C, they got very comfortable and expected the cheese to always be there. They took the cheese for granted and even moved their homes closer, creating, unfortunately, a false sense of security. They assumed their hard work in finding the cheese justified an endless supply of it. Sniff and Scurry behaved differently. They followed their instincts and paid attention to small changes. They did not cling to beliefs about how things should be. One morning, when Cheese Station C had no more cheese, they quickly went off in search of new cheese. At the lack of cheese, Hem and Haw freaked out. Happiness, they thought, was connected to finding the cheese where they expected to find it, and they believed that if your cheese is important, you must hold on to it. "Who moved my cheese?" Hem yelled. "This is so unfair." Even when there was no cheese, they kept coming back morning after morning, expecting to find cheese, but they didn't. Finally, Haw started to laugh at himself. Haw suggested that they maybe go and find new cheese, but Hem doesn't agree. What they don't know is Sniff and Scurry already found a huge supply of cheese at Cheese Station N as they searched the maze for new cheese. Haw realizes the old cheese isn't going to show up and that it was time to start another search. He felt more alive when he decided to move on. He left a note for Hem. If you do not change, you can become extinct. And what would you do if you weren't afraid? As Haw journeys out into the maze, he writes messages to himself, hoping Hem will see them and understand the wisdom he is trying to share. Recalling the cheese at Cheese Station C, Haw admits that the cheese had gotten smaller and older and didn't taste good. Change would not have taken him by surprise had he watched what was happening and anticipated change. He wrote, "Smell the cheese often so you know when it is getting old." Although he felt fear, Haw moved in a new direction. He began trusting what lay ahead, even though it was unknown. He felt good and wondered why. Then he knew why and wrote, "When you move beyond your fear, you feel free." In the maze, Haw started having fun. He imagined eating the many cheeses he liked and imagined enjoying the tastes of new cheese. Then he wrote, "Imagining myself enjoying new cheese leads me to it." On his journey, Haw found bits of new cheese and began to get stronger. He wanted to go back to see if Hem would come along. As he did this, he wrote, "The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you find new cheese." When he got back to Cheese Station C, he offered Hem new cheese, but Hem said he didn't think he'd like it because it was not what he was used to. Because he was not ruled by fear and didn't feel as weak as he did when he stayed in Cheese Station C with no cheese, Haw ventured back out on his own. He realized it is safer to search in the maze than remain in a cheeseless situation. Haw realized the fear you let build up in your mind is worse than the situation that actually exists. He'd been so afraid of never finding new cheese that he didn't start looking. Now, just looking was becoming exciting. His beliefs were evolving. He no longer believed that cheese should stay in one place or change was wrong. Haw believed relocated cheese and change were natural, whether expected or not. He then wrote, "Old beliefs do not lead you to new cheese." Haw saw that new beliefs encouraged new behaviors. He knew that when you change what you believe, you change what you do. You can believe change will hurt you, or that new cheese will help you embrace change. Haw then wrote, "When you see you can find and enjoy new cheese, you change course." By this time, Haw saw if he had embraced change sooner and left Cheese Station C earlier, he'd be in better shape. Finally, he hoped Hem would read the handwriting on the wall and find his way. Haw wrote, "Noticing small changes early helps you adapt to bigger changes to come." Just as Haw was letting go of the past and adapting to the future, he found new cheese. Cheese Station Inn had piles of cheese of all kinds. Sniff and Scurry were there too. Haw jumped into the new cheese and ate a ton. Finally, Haw summarizes what he has learned and leaves it for him and for the reader. It's called The Handwriting on the Wall. Here it is. And lastly, the discussion. After Michael was done telling the story, him and his classmates agreed to get together and talk about the story as it applied to some of their own experiences in work and life. We at Calibrain invite you to click on the Participate button to see some of what these classmates discussed, as well as add your thoughts on how you see yourself in the story of Who Moved My Cheese? Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson is a fun and enjoyable read that will prepare you to handle change and position you for the reality of continual, ongoing change in your work and life. The book takes less than an hour to read, but its impact and wisdom will last much, much longer. Pick up a copy to get all the details that were not in our review. You will be glad you did. Thanks for watching, and leave us a comment below to let us know what you thought about this book review.
Okay. That was a very good short summary about the book itself.